Never fails.
Oh, it's interesting. It's streaming live. Oh, how's it looking on there?
Is it? Oh, it's streaming live already. Oh, that was fast.
Yeah, let me double check something here.
Are we streaming through the other social media too, or just
Well, that's
Facebook?
that's that's what I want to check. Make sure we're streaming to the right places.
Okay, welcome on Facebook, but we're double checking our system to make sure we're streaming at on the other social media platforms. So, if not, we might have to end this and then come back.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. How come I don't see him on the social?
Is the restream set up?
Yeah, everything's set up as usual,
Oh,
but
okay.
I don't see us.
Sorry, folks. We're double checking.
Yeah, I don't see it streaming. Let
Wonder
me do
what
a
happened.
quick.
No, I see it. I see it on LinkedIn.
Oh, okay, you got him there. Okay, yeah,
Oh,
just my.
caught off guard. That was fast.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, hold on here. I gotta do something from my end. Okay, welcome everybody. I know we're on Facebook blabbing about trying to figure this system out, but we realized that we're streaming to not only Facebook, but various other platforms like LinkedIn and YouTube. And then also people are live on our Zoom platform. So we got all these different things going. And I'm glad you guys could join us. Happy Labor Day was yesterday, and I know there's thousands of hotel workers that are on strike, including hospital workers also. So um, happy Labor Day to you guys. I know you have issues that you need to deal with. I decided that the topic is construction terminology. I decided that for those of you who aren't in Hawaii, I know there's people on our platform from different parts of the mainland and even some countries around the world. Um, I'm not going to be giving this webinar in Pidgin English, thankfully, because otherwise you won't be able to understand anyway. And then some contractors, when they found out about this webinar, they said, why are you telling people this stuff? We want them to not understand so that we can do more work and collect money. And I said, that's not how it goes. But here's an example. Somebody had contacted me. They're building a brand new house. They're spending $800,000. And they called me and said, we don't know what the contractor's saying half the time. And I'm saying, oh, okay, well, I'll help clear that up. And basically, that's how I got the idea for this webinar. A lot of people don't understand. Some people just email me or call me saying, I have a question, Lance. What does this mean? The contractor said this. I don't know what he's talking about. And I said, why don't you ask? He goes, oh no, the guy talks too much, or he doesn't want me to ask questions, or I feel bad because I don't really know this stuff. I go, you're not supposed to. If you're not trained as an architect, engineer, or contractor or in construction, you're not required to know these terms and stuff. It's like on the job training. So here we go. Construction terminology. What's this mumbo jumbo? Um, Here's a little commercial. This webinar is presented by Construction Management Inspection. I changed the title on the top from two-time best-selling author to three-time, and I'll tell you why. You probably can guess. Um, if you look at the image on the top, I'm wearing a three-piece suit next to this Caucasian guy. That guy is Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul guy. And that's the book that hit bestseller status just like last week or the week before. So that's what's happening. In fact, I'm flying in tomorrow to LA to go meet up with him and talk story and stuff. So enough of that. This webinar is presented also by the National Building Expert. It's part of the Ask the Building Expert webinar series. Why do we do these? We put these webinars to help homeowners, condo owners, realtors, and anybody who wants the information. It's all about information gathering. The more you know, the more powerful you are. Knowledge is power, right? So that's why we're here to help everybody that needs the help. So let's go right into it. Let's talk about exterior terms. You have a balustrade. Well, what the heck is that? Sounds like some kind of thing off an Italian menu or something. But balustrade is a railing supported by balusters, often found on railings, staircases, or balconies. And the in-between things are also called pickets. Now, you heard of like the white picket fence. Pickets are vertical slats or bars in a fence or railing that are evenly spaced, sometimes they're not, that provide support and decoration. So if you look at a railing, it could also be the intermediate rails are also called pickets. So the balustrade could be pickets also. I'm just going to breeze through. Facade, the front or face of a building. I think I took this photo on my trip to Italy or somewhere. Anyway, I forgot where it was. So that's a facade. If anybody says it's a facade of a building, that's the front or face. If you go to Disneyland, there's a lot of facades, and then in the back, there's nothing, right? It's just the front. Roofing. Roofing is a material, as you know, construction used to cover the top of a building. You know, that's roofing. Now, roofing could be a verb or it could be a noun, but it's used in different ways, right? We'll talk more about that later. How about siding? I mean, it's pretty obvious, the siding of a house, right? Protective material attached to the exterior of a building wall. The siding in old Hawaii, the siding used to be single wall construction, TNG. What's TNG? Tongue and groove. The sections of wood slotted and fit together. And then there's also siding called stucco siding or EIFS. What does that stand for? Exterior Insulation Finish System, or just EIF, Exterior Insulation Finish, or EIS, Exterior Insulation System. If you go around and look at the new buildings, hotels, restaurants and all that, looks like stucco. It's actually synthetic concrete. So the definition is exterior wall covering includes insulation and then the finished surface. Usually it's more energy efficient because there's numerous layers. If you look at the image on the bottom and the bottom right, there's a little rectangle section that shows the different layers of this stucco. So we just call it stucco. If you want to get fancy, you can call it EFIS or EIFS or Exterior Insulation Finish System. Okay. And when it first came out, there was a lot of leaks into buildings on the mainland because they really didn't know how to apply it. So cladding is sort of like siding. It's a covering or coating on a building exterior for protection or sometimes aesthetics. Now, I threw in this picture of the Grenfell Tower. I was up in May, and it's a memorial now because the whole building caught on fire. And it was due to cladding. They had this material that they added to the side of the building, and lo and behold, it wasn't properly fire rated material. It just caught on fire, and the whole tower was basically on fire. Okay, so that's cladding. Eaves is the overhanging edge of a roof. So if you look at the image, you're standing above it and then looking out, and that's the eave. Let's talk about railing. There's a difference, handrail and guardrail. Well, you may say, well, what's the difference? The handrail helps people keep their balance for safety while walking up and down stairs or a ramp or a slope walkway. And versus a guardrail is actually a railing, protective fence or railing to keep people safe from dangerous drops. And usually a guardrail is on flat areas. A handrail could be flat or could be vertical, like on stairs or a ramp. A guardrail most of the time is horizontal on flat surface, and it appears that there's stair landing and lanais, balconies, and so forth. So there's a difference between handrail and guardrail. Most times the guardrail, if you don't go to it, you don't put your hand on it. It's mainly for decoration, although you could if you're on a hotel lanai or you're visiting somebody in a high-rise townhouse or so forth. Talking about stairs, here's where people get confused. Your contractor talks about a tread or riser, and is like, what is that? Well, I put the nice photo here. The tread is actually the step of the stairs. Okay, that's the tread. And the riser is the vertical part. So the tread is a horizontal, which is a step, and the vertical riser makes up part of the stair step. So just remember, the tread is the flat surface that you walk on. The riser is a horizontal, and you don't walk on that, right? And how is the tread and riser like connected? Well, there's a vertical diagonal piece of wood or concrete, or it could be other material, and that's called the stair stringer. And that stringer is a structural support that runs along each side of the stairway, or it could also be the center of a staircase holding the treads and risers. Now, this is a wood frame, and your whole stairway could be made out of stone or could be made out of concrete, and it's pretty much the same terms, right? So it doesn't matter what kind of material your stairway is made out of, you're still going to have components which consist of your tread, riser, and your stair stringer. So that's just some information to help you. Oh, let me go backtrack. A lot of times when the construction is not done correctly, your tread and riser dimensions are different. And that becomes a building code issue or a construction defect. So let's say your first step, your tread is 7 inches, and then the next step is 8 inches, right? So that's a no-no. You can't, it has to be all uniform. The riser height too. The riser height could be 11 inches, then the next step could be 8 inches. That's not to code because it has to be all even. Someone could easily trip and fall, either going up or walking down. Okay. Crown molding. Why is it a crown? Because it's at the top. So the molding is a decorative trim where the wall meets the ceiling. Now, I didn't even know what crown molding was, because in Hawaii, we don't have too much of that unless it's really expensive houses. I learned about it when I had to go to the mainland and take tests for inspection certification. That's how we figured out what it was. So that's crown molding. You also have other molding, which if the molding is at the base of the floor, that's your baseboard. It could be base molding or baseboard. If it's the middle, in like a dining room. They call that your chair rail, and what that is when you're putting your chairs against the wall, it doesn't make big holes in the wall. Okay, everybody heard the term drywall. What is drywall? Drywall is actually panels made of gypsum used to create walls and ceilings. So in the old days, everything was made out of wood, right? Your log cabin houses made out of logs, and later on they decide to mill the logs into wood. So you have 2x4, and you have your plywood siding. And the houses were built like that, all wood. Then later on, drywall was invented and said, wow, okay, let's use drywall. So we'll make the house walls and ceilings out of drywall. It's easy to work with. And I'll let you know later on down the presentation more about the drywall finishes. There's different types of drywall finishes. What's a stud? Well, somebody like Martin, he works out, and but in the construction term, the stud is a vertical framing in walls. It could be, the material could be wood, it could be metal, it could be concrete, but normally if it's concrete, it's called a column. So the stud is a vertical framing members in the walls, and then that's what you attach your drywall to. A joist is a horizontal support beam, and it holds up floor and ceiling. So if you look at the picture of all those pieces of wood, that's called a joist. Now, most times it's called the floor joist. If it's up at the roof, it could be the framing joist of your roof frame, but it's horizontal. The vertical ones or the angle ones are called rafters. So don't get too confused. Wainscoting is a decorative protective panel on the lower part of a wall, but then also the term is used for bathrooms, and that's your tile work. Okay, let's move along. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. Let's talk about electrical. Service panel. What is a service panel? This is a main distribution box that houses your circuit breakers for a building. So you're from the street, there's a series of wires that's called the service entry, and it goes to your service panel. Okay, the main panel service is your main, and it should be always outside of your house or a building. A conduit is a protective tubing like a pipe, and they run the electrical wires through that. So the purpose of the conduit is to protect the wires, and also so you don't have a bunch of spaghetti wiring in your walls or ceiling. It just goes through one or two or several conduits. Circuit breaker, you know what that is, but the proper definition is a switch that automatically interrupts electrical flow in case of an overload or short circuit. So I had a call like, oh, something's wrong. My circuit breaker keeps tripping, and every time I switch it on, it trips again, and then I don't have power. And they said something's wrong. Can I tape it? And I said, no, the reason why it tripped is because something is wrong and you need to fix it. You can't just tape your circuit breaker to make it in the on position. Your whole house might catch on fire because we don't know what the problem is. Could be an overload, short circuit that could start a fire. So not safe. GFCI or GFI is safety devices. So GFCI is ground fault circuit interrupter, a device that shuts off if a ground fault's detected. That's required by code to be anywhere, if you have outlets within 6 feet of a water source, such as your kitchen sink, bathroom sink, garage, anywhere where you can get water, swimming pool, right? So there's a test and a reset button. And it's fairly cheap, but it's a safety device, so you should use it. Even in old houses, you might consider putting that in. Amps and volts, ampere and voltage, units of measurement for electrical current. Um, electrical current is the amps and electrical potential is the voltage. I'm not going to get too technical in that. What you need to know is just call an electrician if you have problems. Don't try and fix it yourself. Moving on to plumbing, where we got water flow. There's a shut-off valve, a valve used to stop the flow of water in a plumbing system. In a single-family house, there should be a shut-off valve somewhere between your water meter and your house. If your house is super old, you might not have a shut-off valve, and the valve used to shut the water off would be inside your water meter, which is basically owned by Board of Water Supply, and you can't touch it. A vent pipe allows air to enter the plumbing system to maintain proper pressure and flow. If you didn't have vent or air, the water wouldn't flow as properly, and if you flush your toilet or use your sink, the thing might get clogged because you need the air. You need the airflow. By the way, these terms are any of the terms that I mentioned in this webinar apply to anywhere in the US and even the world. It's pretty much the same. Okay, so good stuff. Sink drain pipe, there's a P trap, S trap, other traps, but it's the traps are to prevent sewer gases from entering your house or the building. And the reason why it's called P, because it looks like the letter P, or the S looks like a letter S. A backflow preventer is a device that stops contaminated water from flowing back into the clean water supply. Now, if you live in a condo building and you don't have a backflow preventer, you should add one. A lot of older buildings that are redoing their wastewater piping, the city Board of Water Supply is requiring the installation of a backflow preventer, so there's no grandfathering in. You have to do it, otherwise you won't get your permit. Engineering terms, structural analysis. Well, it's an assessment of a structure's ability to withstand loads. Now, a structural analysis could be reviewing plans before the building's built. It could be inspecting the building during construction. It could be an analysis after the building's built to determine whether the building was built properly, or later on, years later, if the building suffers from some failures, that's another structural analysis. Okay, retaining wall. That's pretty easy. A wall built to hold back soil or rock from a building or land area. And your retaining wall could be made out of anything, any kind of material, block, tile, rocks, right? Wood, reinforced concrete. So all kind of different materials. Some more engineering. Reinforced concrete is basically concrete strengthened with embedded steel bars or mesh. So the steel bars, it's called reinforced bar, and the short term is rebar. So when you think of rebar, that's those metal bars that are used. Now, sometimes in driveways, like single-family house, it may be overkill to use rebar in your walkway and driveway, so they use mesh, which is welded wire fabric, they call it. And then foundation, the base that supports and anchors a building. So sometimes foundation or footing could be used interchangeably, but it all depends, right? Let's talk about other terms that don't have to do with building components. Scope of work. What is that? So when the contractor says, what do you want us to do, right? We're going to make a scope of work. Well, basically, it's a detailed description of the work to be performed under a contract. When I say detailed, it should be detailed. So let's say you're building a house or having a addition made. There should be a scope of work that's pretty lengthy. It shouldn't be one sentence. We will build additional bedroom for you. and here's the cost. Okay, you want to know what the various components are. Okay, I'll talk about that a little later. It's interesting, and you'll know. What's a bid? Well, you go to an auction, and if you like, the item being auctioned, you raise your hand. You're usually holding a piece of paper with a number. And Martin and his wife used to go on a lot of cruises, and sometimes in these cruises they have these art auctions, and then you like a piece of painting. Here's number 24, blah blah blah. The starting bid is $1,000, and then Martin raises his hand, 1,500. So that's different. That's an auction bid. Okay, that's bidding. This bid in construction is basically a proposal to perform construction work at a specified price. So sometimes the word bid and the word proposal is used pretty much in a similar fashion, but I'll talk more about it later, and I'll clear that up. A change order, what's that? Any change to the original contract. So it's a document that modifies the original contract agreement. Now, there's a caveat. There could be numerous change orders, but make sure it's in writing. The verbal ones don't cut it. And in the projects that I work on, it has to be in writing. Otherwise, if it's not, the contractor doesn't get paid. Okay, so keep that in mind. Punch list. People go, why is it called a punch list? Well, because the contractor did such a bad job, we feel like punching him. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, that could be right, but usually, like on the mainland, it's called punch out. We're gonna go and punch out this house. Well, okay. And then one guy goes, it's so bad, I feel like punching out the contractor too. But a punch list is basically making a list of items, or it is a list of items to be completed or corrected before final payment. Now, it could be where you're at different stages of construction and you do a punch list at the different stages. Okay, so there's not only one punch list, which happens at the end of the project. There could be numerous punch lists done by different people. And I can talk more about that a little later. Substantial completion. That's an interesting two words. It's basically the stage in a construction project when the work is sufficiently complete for the owner to use the building for its intended purpose. Now, I've had major projects, multi-million projects, where this term comes up and it almost ended up in litigation. Why? Because there was a difference of opinion on the definition. The contractor says, we're substantially complete. You owe us the final payment. And me as a construction engineer saying, no, you're not. You didn't fix everything or construct everything. And they're saying, no, we did. So I'll give you a fast example. You have a restaurant, okay? Everything's done in the restaurant. And so the contractor wants to get paid, right? But in the kitchen, if the exhaust fan doesn't work and we never got inspection by the Department of Health, then I go back to the contractor and I say, hey, pal, you're not substantially complete, because if the kitchen can't work, they can't cook. And if they can't cook, how can the restaurant be open? So therefore, it's not complete, right? On a school building, the air conditioner is not hooked up. Well, although you're finished with everything inside and the classrooms look really nice, we can't open the school because you can't have kids sitting in class without air conditioning. Well, that's in the old days you could, but not today, not unless you have good trade winds. So there's a difference. Flashing, let's talk about roofing. Flashing could be on a roof or could be part of a wall. Material used in roofing and walls to prevent water from seeping into joints and seams. So you could have what's called your roof to wall flashing. Okay, that's the roof to wall, and you could have a wall to wall flashing. And so there's different ways to use the flash. Okay, here's my favorite, 2x4 lumber. What's a 2x4? That's a piece of lumber, right? Could be a stud like Martin. Well, that's fine. The 2x4 refers to lumber, refers to wood with a nominal size of 2 inches by 4 inches, typically used in framing. Okay, that's a 2x4. But did you know that the dimensions of the lumber today is not 2x4? They go, well, why did they call it 2x4? Well, in the old days, okay, it was 2x4. It was actually 2 inches by 4 inches. So there's what's called a nominal versus actual size. The difference between the labeled size and the true size of materials like lumber or pipes. But in this example, we're talking about lumber. So in the old days, it was actually a 2x4. What is it today? It's called a 2x4, but the dimensions are not. Okay, the nominal is the actual size of the wood before milling and before it becomes sent to Home Depot, okay, let's say, or Lowe's or the City Mill. So the original was nominal, 2 inches by 4 inches, but today's standard, it's actual. It's 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. If you don't believe me, take a tape measure and go to City Mill, Home Depot, wherever, and go measure it, and then you'll see. And why is the difference? Because in the old days, everything was the nominal size, right? Now it's actual sizes. So it's not only 2x4. As you go through like 4x8, 4x6 beams and all that, it's similar. You got to cut off like 1/2 inch to the nominal dimension. Now you heard the term 12-inch or 16-inch on center. You know, a lot of contractors, yeah, we're going to build this 16-inch on center and you're going to have solid walls, blah, blah, blah. Well, what does it mean? The definition, the wood studs, okay, they're 2x4. Wood studs are spaced 16 inches apart from the center of one stud to the center of the next. So if you look at your vertical studs that are lining up and you measure it, if it's 16-inch on center, then that's 16 inches apart, right? So that's what it means. Okay, let's go back to drywall. Here's the drywall levels of finish. Did you know there's like 6 different levels of drywall finish? So it's the description of the quality of finish on drywall. It ranges from 0, which is unfinished, to level 5, which is the smoothest. Now, most of you guys don't know this, and here's where the contractor gets tricky, because in his contract, he doesn't specify the level. So if you're doing remodeling, you're building a new house, you want to make sure the contractor or the contract actually specifies and it's written in. All drywall will be level 5 finish inside the house. In the garage, it could be level 4, okay, or something like that. So here we go, levels of drywall finish. Level 0, the drywall boards are just fastened to walls or ceilings only, like in the picture, and all you see the nails, right? It's just hung. The drywall's hung. There's no finish taping or drywall mud or anything. It just looks unfinished, right? But that's sometimes when new houses are sold in the garage, that's what you see. Level 1, drywall joint tape is embedded in the joint compound at the seam. So you have the drywall sections together, and now you're covering the seams up. And that's level 1. Is it really finished? No, it's not. It's not finished to paint, but it's the level of drywall finish, level 1. All right, what's level 2? Oh, you apply a thin coat of joint compound and it's skimmed over the tape and screw holes. Okay, so now you have this. Is it a level to paint? No, it's not. You know why? Because there's a thin layer that is not sanded. So level 3, a second coat of joint compound is applied to the tape and screws. Now it looks smooth, right? So that's a level 3. Most contractors say that it's level 3, and ready to paint. Is it? Well, let's talk about level 4. Level 4 is another coat of joint compound is applied and the surface is sanded. Okay, so do you think that ready for paint is level 3 or level 4? Okay, you're right, it's level 4, right? So don't accept a level 3 drywall finish and then they're going to paint over that, okay? And then level 5, this is your highest level of drywall finish, requiring skim coat over the level 4 finish, smoothing out any defects, deficiencies. And when you look at the wall, it's like almost perfectly smooth. Ready for paint, ready for dry wallpaper, uh, good things like that, okay? I've seen many contractors paint over a level 2 or 3, and that's why it looks horrible. Okay, let's talk about building plans. What are plans? Plans are detailed drawings or blueprints used to guide the construction process. Okay, so when somebody says plans and specs, well, what's the specs? Specifications, written documentation that outline the materials and workmanship required for a construction project. So here's the difference. A plan tells you what to build. A specs will tell you how to build it. So a plan for a roof would say, build the roof framing with 2x4s, rafters spaced 16-inch on center with plyboard roof decking. Okay, the plans will say that. Then the specs would say, we want certain type of roofing paper, and then we want a certain type of roof shingles, 30-year, 40-year, 50-year asphalt shingles with a warranty of 30, 40, or 50 years. You got to specify it, and you want the specific brand. So that's the difference between plans and specs. Can a contractor build just on plans, not using specs? Yes, they can. Will the construction be in accordance with what the contract says? Maybe, maybe not. Most likely not. Because if you're not clear on what kind of material to use, then you're just going to get, whatever the contractor feels like it. You heard of LEED construction? The LEED is a certification for environmental sustainability building practices. And the LEED is an acronym. It stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. So if you're building WAN, or you heard of buildings that won LEED certification, then that's good. And it's not only residential. You could have office buildings, you could have hotels that have the LEED certification. And to me, that's a good thing. Saves the environment. Moving along, remember we talked about foundation? Now we're talking about footing. Footing, part of the foundation that supports the structure and distributes its load to the ground. Okay, in this case, you can see wall being built, okay, sitting on concrete. And here's another definition. Part of the foundation that supports a structure and distributes its load to the ground. Now, I got this. I inspected the Millennium Tower. It's a leaning tower in San Francisco. And they use friction piles. So if you look at the image here, the friction pile is on the right. And then you see that dark area on the bottom? That's actually bedrock. And the reason why the tower is leaning is because their piles, their footing, didn't go all the way to bedrock. And so that's not now the fix now, attaching the building all the way to bedrock. So they made it a big error. I don't think they realized that that building was a swamp before. And, San Francisco, all the San Francisco area where your financial district is, that whole area was a swamp. So the soil isn't that good. Okay, as-built drawing, revised plans that reflect the actual construction, including any changes made during the building construction. So this picture is not of an as-built drawing, but just showing you. So you have a set of plans, right? that's how the building is going to be built. But if they change things, walls, windows, the location of electrical or plumbing that's shown on the original plans, the as-built drawings correct that. So in other words, the as-built drawing is the supposedly actual drawing of how the construction was at the end of the project. The real story, not the original plans. But believe it or not, I've seen some as-built drawings that were incorrect. Okay, so that's a heads up. RFP, requests for proposals. It's a document inviting contractors to submit proposals for a project, including cost estimate and plan. So when I go out to bid on my projects, I put together an RFP, request for proposals, and it could be 1 page, it could be 20 pages. Okay? It all depends on the type of project it is. And basically it says, dear contractor, you're invited to bid on this project, and here's a description of the project. And then if you want to include building plans, if you have it, fine. If you want to include photos or other caveats, things like that, then that's the time to do so. Procurement policy, procedures for acquiring goods and services for a construction project. Okay. Mostly this applies to government construction projects. DOE, or take, for instance, the Honolulu Rail. That's a procurement project where they have to follow strict guidelines. That's why there's so much red tape. There's a to-do list to follow, and you got to follow everything to the T. How about this? Contractor versus licensed contractor. What's the difference, right? The difference is a contractor is a person or company that undertakes a contract for construction, while a licensed contractor is one that has formal certification and passed tests to get licensed to do and perform specific work. Okay, now there's a difference between a general contractor versus not a general contractor, which would be a subcontractor, specialty contractor. Building code, regulations that specify the standards for construction, insurance, safety, and compliance. Now, there's not one building code. There's over 20 building codes. So a lot of times I get asked on construction defect litigation cases, the client says, did the contractor follow the code? And I say, I don't know. And they go, I thought you're any expert. I said, yes, let me clear this up. The reason I don't know is what code are we looking at? What code was a contractor supposed to follow? Was he supposed to follow the IRC, International Residential Code, or the IBC, International Building Code? And what about other codes, such as electrical, plumbing, mechanical? And then they go, oh, wow, this thing is complicated. And I said, yeah. So when you ask me a question like that, I can't answer it. I have to get more information. And then also, what code, right? If the building was built in 2010, did the code during that time apply? We don't know for sure, right? The code changes every 3 years. So what was the code? If a building is built today, 2024, I guarantee you that they're not following the 2024 building code. They're following the previous building code, because that's at the time they drew their plans, that was the code that was prevalent at the time, not when they're building, the property or the building. Payment application, formal request for payment for completed work, typically submitted by contractors, right? So in smaller jobs, like you're doing a house renovation, building a house, the payment application is a formal term. The contractor would just say it's an invoice. I'm going to send you an invoice, or a bill. I'll send you a bill. So learn construction jargon, build your expertise. Let me go through this thing. Some of these are repetitive slides. So we have our askbuildingexpert.now.site website. I'm just going to go through this fast. So we have all these expert sites. So we have 50 different websites that Martin and I built for each thing: roofing, contractor licensing, building code, fire life safety, painting. So go check it out on our website. We have our blogs too. We have all of our webinars that we've given in the past recorded. You can watch. We have free books. If you guys like to read, we got books on a lot of different subjects, and they're available free. Just go to our website. So you got questions, we got the answers. So I know there's questions. I got a bunch that came in too while I was talking. So let's open it up now. Martin, any questions on Zoom or social media? And then after that, if we have time, I'll go and talk about the other
Sure,
questions that came in.
sure. Well, we've got a few that have come in here. Let me ask you a couple of them here. The first one here is Lance. Could you provide an example from your extensive experience where understanding specific construction terminologies, such as punch list or change order, significantly impacted the outcome of a project?
Yeah, sure. Let me okay, good. Thanks. So for instance, a punch list. So there was a misunderstanding between the contractor and the homeowner. Okay, and the misunderstanding was the contractor said that make your punch list, we're finished. And after that was done, the contractor finished everything on the list, and then the homeowner had another punch list. And I got called in after by the homeowner saying, can you help me? I need an expert because the contractor's telling me I only had opportunity to do one punch list. And so we had a meeting, and I told the contractor straight out, listen, I don't care what your contract says or anything. The homeowner has a right to do multiple punch lists. So if you finish one list and there's more stuff that was discovered, that's another punch list. And he said, no, they can only do one. And I said, where's the law that says that? Of course, there's no law that says that, right? And in the contract, in the actual documentation, it says the homeowner will do one punch list at the end of the project, and the contractor will repair what's needed and talk about things that maybe are on the punch list, but not the contractor's responsibility. So it got to the point where it was so ridiculous. I ended up having to do my own punch list. And the contractor wasn't too happy because I had 50 items on the list. And he wanted to meet. I said, oh, let's go and meet. So we went down and looked at each thing. Oh, there's a nick in the drywall. Oh, that's no big deal. Can't even see it. I said, hey, bro, this is a new house. There shouldn't be a nick in the drywall. Missing paint. One cabinet door, the hinge is missing 2 screws. I said, all these are your job, Mr. Contractor. And then, by the way, I said, if you don't fix all this stuff, I'm not going to authorize the final payment. So what did he have to do? He had to go back and fix all these things. And I said, furthermore, I want the architect and engineer to come in and make their own punch list. Oh, no, that's not in the contract. I said, I don't care, right? So that became an issue. Thankfully, the homeowner got everything fixed. But in some cases, things couldn't be fixed because that wasn't the contractor's responsibility, but I have to explain that. So that, as well as a substantial completion study that I told you about on the restaurant, right? Those things could end up, big problems, and the contractor doesn't get paid. The contractor wants to get paid, but I'm the gatekeeper. I'm like, until you fix this, you're not going to get paid. You're not substantially complete if the restaurant can't open, if the kids can't go to class, or some other issue, right? That could impede the substantial completion. Now, on a office building, the substantial completion was tied in to getting the certificate of occupancy from the building department. And so the contractor says, I'm done. You inspected it. You signed off. I said, yes, I did. But you're still not going to get paid. You're going to get paid when you deliver to me the substantial completion certificate from the building department. And needless to say, he was not happy. But I said, read your contract. I'm the one that put that clause in. Because although you're finished, we can't open the doors and let people occupy if we don't get the building department to give us a certificate of occupancy. And that's a special certificate that allows you to open the door and let people in your building. And you know who signs off on that? The fire department, the building department, and all that. So although the building looks good, we still can't occupy. We get cited. So those are examples of some things that I've been experiencing or experienced in the past.
Okay, Lance, well, you just made me think of something about that occupancy certificate. Is that something for all construction buildings, like residential and commercial, or is it more of a commercial thing?
And more of a commercial thing. On the mainland, it's both residential and commercial. Here in Hawaii, it's mostly commercial.
Okay.
Now, instead of like you're building a new house, instead of a formal certificate of occupancy, the building department can just give you a sign off that they inspected it and they closed out the building permit. That's good enough.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. Let me give you one of the other questions that's come up here, and let's see, what was that? Oh, what is the difference in the terms design, bid, and build versus design, build?
Okay, so in the past, everything was design, bid, build. What that means is you have plans drawn by the architect and engineers. The contractor bids on and he builds it. So that's the standard. That's pretty much the normal standard of construction. Even today, that's pretty prevalent. But now they're building commercial buildings, schools, hospitals under the design build method. And what that means is that they're basically designing as they're building. So you have your foundation design, but the rest of the building is not designed. The contractor actually starts working because they got a permit for the foundation, but not a permit for the rest of the building. So that's the difference between design, bid, build, and design, build. In design, build, you don't have the finished plans. And normally on a design, build project, you don't have a separate architect and a separate contractor. They're normally one entity called the design build entity. And it's normally architectural and engineering firm or a big contractor that in their staff, they have architects and engineers and they're one entity. So the term would be a design build contractor. So you could actually hire this design build contractor to build a house, but it kind of doesn't make sense because if you don't design it first, how do you know what the cost is going to be, right? And how do you know it's going to be designed the way you want it? And that's why, like, if I design my house, I want the house to be designed how I want it. I don't want them designing as they're building it, unless I'm there every day and tell them, stop, stop, that's not where I want the windows to go.
Okay.
So that's the difference.
Okay. And I was just thinking, was the rail a design build project where they didn't really get bids?
Well, it was both. It was both because initially they did get bids, but then because the rail was such a huge project, they have to get bids in stages because there's so many different rail stations, and each rail station or one or two or multiple were built by a different contractor, right? So if you look at all the rail stations, not all of them are being built by the same contractor. So there's different phases and they go out to bid for each phase. So
Okay.
hopefully they all look the same, right?
Okay. Okay. Well, it sounds like maybe a weakness in the process if they do it that way without good bidding process. But yeah,
The whole
anyway.
project was a weakness in the process.
Okay. We get one more question here, and let me see what that one was. Where did that come in? Oh, what are some common misunderstandings or misconceptions you've encountered regarding construction terminologies? And how do you suggest professionals effectively clarify these terms to clients or team members who might not be as familiar with construction jargon?
I think they got to watch our webinar here, right? Um,
Agreed.
and then, you know, ask the contractor, excuse me, you mentioned this term. Can you explain what that means? And just ask the or if you don't wanna, if you're too bashful to ask the contractor, call us up, send us an email. We'll be happy to explain it to you, or go look online. I mean, now with Google that's connected to Chat GPT with AI, you can basically, you don't even need me to tell you, right? You could just go look it up, and then you understand the definition. So that's, I don't sign the contract or accept work done by the contractor or what the contractor's saying unless you totally understand what the contractor is telling you. Okay, so it building a house and construction costs a lot of money. And so it's not one where if you don't understand, you're like, okay, I'll just accept not knowing, or you think you know the definition, but you don't. You can't do that on large ticket items in building a house or an addition or doing construction. You can't accept not knowing. You have to know, right? That's part of your job. If you're a homeowner or you represent a client, let's say you're a realtor or a consultant, you got to know these things. You can't just like say, I think I know, and then, you know, brush it off, right? So I got other terms that came in. Martin, you want me to go over that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Please do. That's all the questions that I've seen come in. So go
Okay.
for it.
I know we don't have much time left, but I'll briefly. So people have emailed me some terms. So one is a fence wall. What is a fence wall? Well, you know what a fence is, right? So a fence is like a fence that could be made of any kind of material, bamboo, wood, concrete. But you could also have a fence wall, which is like a solid wall of concrete. But if it's not retaining, right? It's not retaining anything on either side, then it becomes a fence wall. Uh, turnkey. Turnkey is your house is built turnkey. So in other words, the contractor finishes it and he should give you the key. You turn it, walk in, and everything's done. That's that's what the definition of turnkey is. There's nothing else that the contractor needs to do to finish. Okay. Architect of record or engineer of record, that's the architect who actually signed the building plans, okay, or engineer. That would be the architect on record. If there's numerous architects and engineers, such as in Kaka'ako, they got like 10 different engineers and a couple architects. The architect of record is a prime architect, the main architect. Okay. ASTM, it's an acronym for American Society of Testing Materials. That's commonly used as a standard for construction. Now, if the contractor doesn't know what that means, then they're not following the standard, of course. Bid package, we talked about that already. You put things together to obtain a bid, which is building plans, description of what the project is, and all that. I talked about RFP, but there's also RFI. As you're going through construction, RFI means request for information. So during the course of construction, the contractor might send a RFI, request for information. I'm building this roof here, but the plans show only the material for house roof. It doesn't show material for the enclosed patio, which is a flat roof. I don't know what kind of material to use, so the RFI would say, can you give us information in writing as far as what kind of material to use for the flat roof? Okay, best value contractor. That means a contractor that was scrutinized and vetted on not only his price, but his background, his previous projects, his track record. Does he have any complaints with Better Business Bureau and DCCA RICO? So don't only hire the cheapest contractor. You want to hire the best value contractor. Base bid. Base bid is the bid, the total cost of whatever the construction is. That's base bid. And then you could have add-ons to that, right? T&M, time and material. Okay. So time, the labor cost versus the cost of material. Unit cost is either by square footage or by unit of measurement. It could be, okay, the cost to build this one bedroom is X. Okay. And then you could break it down. Schedule of values is you get one base bid. Let's say you're building a house and it's 600,000. Okay, but I want a schedule of values. I want to know what each component, the breakdown of each component, such as foundation, framing, roof, plumbing, electrical. I want line items, and you add all those items up, it becomes the amount of your base bid. And when the contractor does that, he gotta show how much profit and overhead he's charging, because otherwise the number won't come out to the base bid number. SOW, which is scope of work. You want to make sure that the contractor gives you that so you know exactly what the contractor's doing. Subcontractor is the contractor that's working under the general contractor. Now you have one general contractor. Let's say you're building your house. You have one general contractor, and you may have 5, 6 different subcontractors, or you may have 20 different subcontractors. Subcontractors would be, subcontractors under the general would be, maybe the general subbed out framing, or maybe he subbed out concrete work. Most likely he's doing it himself, right, with his own crew. But then you have electrical, plumbing, that's all subbed. You have roofing, that's subcontractor. You may have other specialty things, right, that would be subcontracted out. Maybe your ceramic tile flooring is subcontracted out. Floor plan. Floor plan is a plan based on a bird's eye view of the building. Okay, that's the floor plan, as opposed to an elevation plan, which is you're standing looking at the front of the house. That's the elevation, right? From floor to roof. That's the elevation. And then the last one is value engineering. Value engineering is a term used basically to save money on the cost of the construction. So if you read news articles, oh, through value engineering, the rail saved $1 million. Well, exactly how did they do that? Did they cut off some of the plans? Did they substitute to more inferior materials? How did they arrive at the savings, right? A lot of times value engineering is a change in the design and the plans, or changing in materials. The homeowner says, it costs too much. We gotta lower the cost. I can't afford to pay that much. Okay, so we have the plans drawn out already. So value engineering would be, you know what? Instead of having this fancy concrete tile roof, we can change it to asphalt shingle. That's value engineering. Okay, you're substituting materials. Other times you can substitute design, right? So it's all good, but the main thing is to know the terms so that you know what you're dealing with. It's almost like in the medical profession, you go to see a doctor and he goes, oh, I think you have blah, 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 and this, that. And it's like, what? Can you like talk to me in plain language? same thing. So in different trades, construction, engineering, medical field, they all use different terminology. Even like musicians and artists, the average person, they're not into that. That's not what they do. So there's terms that are being used, and it's good to understand it. So the more you know, the better, right? And we're here to help you. So any other last minute things, Martin?
Um, no, no, I think we're good. Good job.
Okay. I went over a little because normally it's 1 hour, but thank you everybody for tuning in. Hope you learned something. If you learned just one term, 1 or 2 terms, then we're happy with that. If you learn more than that, like, oh man, I didn't know these 20 different terms. Now, like I'm an expert in construction. Okay, even better, right? So thank you for joining us. Tune in to our next webinar. Oh, you know what? No, I'm going overboard, but over time, but that's okay. Our next webinars, Hawaii's condo insurance crisis, spiraling costs and market instability. That's like, to me, a hot topic. Then we got history of major disasters in Hawaii, historical overview of coastal erosion at Kahana Sunset. There's a building on Maui, project on Maui. There's multiple buildings. 2 buildings are in bad shape and they want to rebuild, but it's too close to the ocean. So, and then in November, let's talk BS. I always like to talk BS, but in this case, BS is building safety. Okay, then after that, build your home to protect from a wildfire. That's for Lahaina and also for homeowners on the mainland. And then in December, home safety for the holidays. So I already like working on a PowerPoint, and I'll be talking about Christmas tree fires and electrical cords that look like spaghetti and unsafe conditions during Christmas. We want you guys to be safe. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Lance Luke, Martin Pia, Ask Building Expert. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching the replay, thank you for watching. We appreciate everybody, all your questions and your comments. Thank you very much. See you again. Mahalo and aloha.